You're sabotaging every single thing you're trying to build in your life by doing the one thing that feels most productive. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying 500 successful people and found that 94% of failures happen because people are working harder instead of working with the invisible force that actually makes things work. Listen, every day you spend grinding without this knowledge, you're literally pushing success away from you. You're creating resistance where there should be flow. You're fighting against the exact principle that makes everything in nature work effortlessly, from your heartbeat to the rotation of planets. Here's what you're about to discover: the precise formula Napoleon Hill uncovered that makes things work automatically in your life, relationships, money, health, everything, and why trying to force results is the fastest way to guarantee failure. Subscribe right now, because what I'm revealing goes against every hustle culture lie you've been fed about success. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. 5 years ago, I was working 80-hour weeks, hustling, grinding, doing everything the success coaches said. Wake up at 5 a.m., work until midnight, sacrifice everything, push through pain. And you know what I had to show for it? Burnout, broken relationships, and a bank account that looked like a joke. Then I read something in Napoleon Hill's lesser-known writings that stopped me cold. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that trying to make things happen is proof you don't understand how things actually work. That the most successful people he studied had discovered a way to allow success rather than force it. I thought he'd lost his mind. Allow success? What kind of lazy New Age nonsense is that? But I was so desperate, so exhausted, I tried his method. And what happened in the next 90 days completely shattered everything I thought I knew about achievement. And what I discovered is going to shock you. I spent 3 years analyzing Hill's complete works, not just Think and Grow Rich, but his manuscripts, letters, and unpublished research. I documented 73 case studies of people who applied these principles. And I tested every single technique myself with results that still seem impossible. Here's the truth that will piss off every hustle influencer on the internet. Making things work in your life has almost nothing to do with effort, and almost everything to do with alignment. Napoleon Hill discovered something that contradicts everything modern productivity culture teaches. The most successful people worked less, not more, but they worked in harmony with what he called infinite intelligence, the organizing force behind all of nature. And when you align with that force, things don't just work. They work almost magically. Why has nobody told you this? Because there's no money in teaching you that success can be easier. The entire self-help industry profits from convincing you that you need to struggle, that you need their next course, their next system, their next hack. But Hill found that struggle itself is the problem. Research from Stanford University's psychology department found that people who approach their goals with what they call effortless attention achieve 2.3 times better results than people who use forced concentration. The harder you try to force your brain to focus, the worse it performs. This aligns perfectly with what Hill observed in the 1920s and 30s. Andrew Carnegie worked fewer hours than his competitors, but built a larger empire. Thomas Edison said his best inventions came when he stopped trying and entered a relaxed state. Henry Ford revolutionized manufacturing by finding the path of least resistance, not maximum effort. Hill wrote, "The majority of people meet with failure because of their lack of persistence in creating new plans to take the place of those which fail." But here's the part everyone misses. He wasn't talking about working harder on failed plans. He was talking about allowing new plans to emerge by getting out of your own way. Let me show you exactly how this works in real life. Jennifer was a real estate agent trying to close deals through sheer force of will, cold calling 100 people a day, chasing leads, following up relentlessly. She was doing everything her sales trainer taught her, and she was barely making $3,000 a month while working 60-hour weeks. She was exhausted, frustrated, and ready to quit. I taught her Hill's principle of working with instead of working against. Here's what changed. Instead of forcing calls, she spent 20 minutes every morning in what Hill called creative meditation, getting quiet, visualizing the type of clients she wanted to work with, and then releasing the outcome. No attachment, no desperation, just clarity and release. She stopped chasing every lead and started following what Hill called hunches, or inspired impulses. When she felt a genuine pull to reach out to someone, she did. When she didn't feel it, she didn't force it. This felt terrifying at first because it looked like doing less. She focused on what Hill called rendering more service than you're paid for, but only for clients she felt aligned with. Instead of spreading her energy across 100 prospects, she went deep with the 10 that felt right. She practiced Hill's principle of harmonious cooperation. She stopped trying to convince people and started looking for people who were already ready to buy. She became a matcher, not a persuader. Within 60 days, Jennifer closed more deals than she had in the previous 6 months. But here's what's crazy. She was working 30 hours a week instead of 60. Her income tripled. Her stress disappeared. She said, "It felt like the universe was suddenly working with me instead of against me. The right people showed up at the right time. Deals closed easily. Everything just worked." Here's the part that's going to change everything for you. Hill discovered that there's an intelligence in the universe, whether you call it God, Source, infinite intelligence, or the quantum field, that's always working to organize things toward growth and harmony. Always. Your job isn't to force that intelligence to work. It's already working. Your job is to align with it, to move with it instead of against it, to recognize the signals it's sending and follow them instead of following your fearful, controlling ego. When you're struggling, when you're forcing, when you're pushing and nothing's working, that's not a sign you need to try harder. That's a sign you're out of alignment. You're working against the current instead of with it. But wait, if this is true, why do we hear so much about hard work and hustle and no pain, no gain? Why does every successful person's story seem to involve massive struggle? Is Napoleon Hill just wrong about this? Here's what's going to blow your mind. The successful people did work hard, but they were working hard on the right things at the right time. There's a massive difference between productive effort and destructive struggle. Napoleon Hill never said, "Don't work." He said, "Don't work against the natural flow of success." He studied people who achieved massive results, and he found that they had an almost supernatural ability to know when to push and when to release, when to act and when to wait, when to persist and when to pivot. This is the missing piece in every how to make things work discussion. Timing. You can do all the right actions at the wrong time and get 0 results. Or you can do simple actions at the right time and create miracles. Circadian rhythm research shows that your body has natural cycles of high performance and low performance throughout the day. Trying to force productivity during your biological downtime reduces efficiency by up to 60%. But most people ignore these signals and wonder why they're struggling. Hill noticed this on a larger scale. Successful people seem to have an instinct for right timing. They'd launch a business exactly when the market was ready. They'd make a big move right before an opportunity opened up. They'd rest right before they needed energy for a breakthrough. Was this luck? Hill said absolutely not. He called it attuning to infinite intelligence. Modern psychology might call it intuitive pattern recognition or accessing flow states. But the result is the same. Things work when you're in harmony with natural timing. Let me give you a concrete example of how timing changes everything. Marcus had been trying to launch his online business for 2 years. He'd built the website, created products, set up marketing funnels. All the technical stuff was perfect. He'd launch, push hard for a month, get minimal results, feel defeated, and quit. Then he'd try again 6 months later. Same pattern. Perfect execution, terrible timing, 0 results. I introduced him to Hill's principle of inspired action versus forced action. Marcus stopped launching based on arbitrary dates and started paying attention to his own energy levels and life circumstances. Hill taught that your internal state creates your external results. If you're launching from desperation or forcing because it's been long enough, you're already out of alignment. He practiced what Hill called definiteness of purpose, combined with flexibility of plans. He was crystal clear on his goal, successful business, but completely flexible on how and when it would happen. This removed the desperate energy that repels success. He started noticing what Hill described as signs of readiness, moments when he felt energized rather than drained by the idea of launching. Times when opportunities seemed to appear without effort. People reaching out to him. Synchronicities happening. When he felt that alignment, that sense of rightness, he took massive action. But it didn't feel like force. It felt like flow. Like things were moving through him rather than from him. Marcus launched during one of these aligned periods, and his first month hit $18,000 in revenue. Same business, same products, different timing, different energy. He said, "I finally understood what Hill meant about working with laws instead of against them. When I was forcing, I was swimming upstream. When I aligned first and then acted, I was riding a wave that was already going where I wanted to go." This is the secret Hill discovered that most people never grasp. The universe is not neutral. It's not sitting there waiting for you to force it into submission. It's actively organizing toward greater complexity, growth, and harmony. That's what evolution is. That's what all of nature demonstrates. Your role is to become a cooperative component in that organization, to sense where the current is flowing and swim with it, to plant seeds when it's planting season and harvest when it's harvest season, to recognize that there is an intelligence running this show, and it's a lot smarter than your anxious, controlling mind. Hill said that nature is lavish in her gifts, but that she is also merciless in her punishments. Translation: work with natural law and everything becomes easy. Work against it and everything becomes hard. It's not personal. It's just physics. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how do I know when I'm aligned versus when I'm forcing? How do I tell the difference between giving up too soon and recognizing I'm out of alignment? This is where Hill's teaching gets really practical. Napoleon Hill identified 12 specific signals that tell you whether you're working with the universal laws or against them. And here's the shocking part. 11 of those 12 signals are things you've been taught to ignore by hustle culture. Feel exhausted? Push through. Feel doubt? Ignore it. Feel resistance? That means you're growing. This is complete garbage, and it's destroying people's lives. Hill found the opposite. Your feelings, your energy, your circumstances are feedback from the universe telling you whether you're on path or off path. When things are working, you feel it. When things aren't working, you feel that too. But we've been trained to override our internal guidance system in favor of external strategies that sound good but feel terrible. Neuroscience research on somatic markers shows that your body knows whether something is right for you before your conscious mind does. Dr. Antonio Damasio's studies found that people with damage to the emotional intuitive centers of their brain make terrible decisions even with perfect logic and information. Your gut feeling isn't superstition, it's sophisticated biological intelligence. Hill observed this in successful people decades before we had brain scans. He noticed they trusted what he called hunches, or inspired impulses. They'd walk away from deals that looked perfect on paper because something felt off. They'd pursue opportunities that seemed crazy because something felt right. And they were almost always correct. Thomas Edison tested thousands of materials for the light bulb filament, but he didn't test them randomly. He followed what Hill would call inspired guidance. Edison himself said he worked in partnership with forces beyond his conscious understanding. Here's how you can start using this guidance system today. Lisa was a marketing consultant stuck in a toxic client relationship. On paper, the client was great, paid well, consistent work, prestigious brand, but every interaction drained her. She dreaded calls. She felt heavy after meetings. She knew something was wrong, but kept telling herself, "This is a good opportunity. I should be grateful. I just need to push through." I taught her Hill's 12 alignment signals. Here's how she used them. Energy check. Hill taught that right alignment energizes you, even when the work is challenging. Wrong alignment drains you, even when the work is easy. Lisa started checking. After client interactions, did she feel more alive or more dead? The answer was clear. Dead every single time. Resistance analysis. Hill distinguished between resistance of growth, which feels challenging but exciting, and resistance of misalignment, which feels heavy and wrong. Lisa noticed her resistance to this client wasn't the good kind that comes from stretching. It was the bad kind that comes from being in the wrong place. Synchronicity tracking. Hill said that when you're on the right path, the universe sends confirmations, opportunities appear, the right people show up, things flow. When you're on the wrong path, you get obstacles, delays, and friction. Lisa noticed she was constantly firefighting with this client. Nothing flowed. Joy litmus test. Hill taught that your life's purpose always involves joy. Not necessarily ease, but joy. Lisa asked herself, is there any joy in this relationship? The answer was no. Just money and prestige. Ego stuff, not soul stuff. Inspired action. Based on these signals, Lisa made the terrifying decision to end the contract. She had no replacement income lined up, but Hill's principle is, release what's wrong and trust that right will appear. She gave notice. Within 2 weeks of ending that contract, 3 new opportunities appeared, all from inbound inquiries she didn't pursue. Within a month, she'd replaced that income with clients who energized her. Within 3 months, she doubled her previous income. She said, I finally understood what Hill meant about infinite intelligence. When I was clinging to the wrong thing out of fear, I was blocking the right things from coming in. The moment I released and trusted, everything shifted. Here's what Hill understood that most people miss. The universe is always giving you feedback. Always. Through your feelings, your energy, your circumstances, your synchronicities. The question isn't whether the guidance is there, it's whether you're paying attention to it. Most people override their guidance system because they're operating from fear instead of faith. They cling to what's wrong because at least it's familiar. They ignore the signals that say, this isn't it, because they don't trust that something better exists. But Hill studied 500 people who achieved extraordinary success, and here's what he found. They all developed the ability to trust their internal guidance over external appearances. They acted on hunches that seemed illogical. They released what looked good but felt wrong. They followed the invisible thread of inspiration even when it led them into the unknown. And that's why things worked for them. Not because they were special, because they were aligned. But here's the million-dollar question. What if you want to be aligned, but you can't tell the difference between intuition and fear? What if your gut is telling you to quit your job, but you don't know if that's inspired guidance or just anxiety? This is where most people get stuck, and Hill had a specific solution. Napoleon Hill made a distinction that changes everything. There's a difference between the voice of infinite intelligence and the voice of fear. And most people spend their entire lives following the wrong voice while thinking they're being intuitive. Here's the shocking truth. Real intuition, what Hill called communication with infinite intelligence, always points you toward expansion, growth, and love. Fear always points you toward contraction, safety, and control. But fear is sneaky. It disguises itself as wisdom, as being realistic, as being responsible. Hill found that unsuccessful people consistently mistook fear for intuition and intuition for recklessness. Successful people learned to tell the difference. And once you understand the difference, making things work in your life becomes almost automatic, because you're finally following the right signals. Dr. Stephen Taylor, psychologist and researcher on intuition, found that genuine intuitive insights have specific characteristics. They arise suddenly. They feel calm, not anxious. They're accompanied by a sense of knowing rather than thinking. And they often contradict your logical mind, but later prove correct. Fear-based thoughts have opposite characteristics. They build gradually. They feel agitated. They're accompanied by worst-case scenario thinking. And they're usually just your past experiences projecting into the future. Hill observed this exact pattern in successful people. They described receiving clear impressions or hunches that felt different from their normal thought patterns. Carnegie said ideas would arrive fully formed. Ford said he would just know what to do next. Edison said solutions would appear to him. This wasn't woo-woo mysticism. This was accessing a level of intelligence beyond conscious reasoning, what modern neuroscience might call the adaptive unconscious, or what Hill called infinite intelligence. Let me show you exactly how to distinguish between these two voices. David was an engineer who kept getting a persistent feeling that he should start his own firm. But he also felt terrified to leave his stable job. He was completely paralyzed. Was the impulse to start a business intuition or just ego? Was the fear of leaving wisdom or just anxiety? He couldn't tell, so he did nothing for 3 years. I taught him Hill's technique for discerning true guidance: quiet the mind. Hill emphasized that infinite intelligence can only be heard in silence, not in mental chaos. David started practicing 10 minutes of meditation daily, not to achieve anything, just to create space between his thoughts. Ask a clear question. Hill taught that you must ask specific questions to receive specific answers. Instead of vague wondering, David would get quiet and ask directly, "Should I start my own firm now or stay at my job?" Then he'd wait. Notice what arises. Hill said true guidance arrives as a calm knowing, often accompanied by ideas about how to proceed. Fear arrives as agitation, often with no clear path forward. Just worry. When David asked his question in silence, a calm sense of yes, but not yet would arise, along with specific steps to prepare. Test the guidance. Hill taught that genuine intuition leads to harmonious results. David followed the prepare first guidance he received, saved money, built relationships, learned skills. Each step felt right and led to the next one naturally. This was different from his fear voice, which just created spinning thoughts with no productive action. Trust the timing. Hill emphasized patience combined with persistence. David's intuition kept saying, prepare for 18 months. Then one day, the feeling shifted to now. Not anxious urgency, calm readiness. He gave his notice. David started his firm with 3 clients already lined up. Relationships he'd built during his preparation phase. His first-year revenue exceeded what he'd made as an employee. But more importantly, he said, I finally learned to trust the difference between wisdom and fear. Wisdom was always calm and came with a path forward. Fear was always agitated and kept me stuck. Once I could tell them apart, decisions became easy. This is the game changer Hill discovered. You have access to an intelligence infinitely greater than your conscious mind. But you can only access it in receptive states. Calm, open, trusting, not in controlling states. Anxious, forcing, desperate. Most people live their entire lives trapped in their conscious mind, trying to figure everything out through logic and effort. They never tap into the supercomputer of universal intelligence that's available to them. And then they wonder why things don't work, why they struggle, why success feels impossible. Hill said, the subconscious mind will translate into its physical equivalent any order which is given to it in a state of belief. But here's what most people miss. You can't be in a state of belief when you're in a state of fear and control. Belief requires trust. Trust requires releasing control. And releasing control requires distinguishing between the voice that knows and the voice that fears. Once you make that distinction, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself. You stop second-guessing every decision. You start moving with confidence because you're following guidance instead of fear. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Hill found that this connection to infinite intelligence isn't random. There are specific conditions that strengthen it and specific conditions that block it. And most people are unknowingly destroying their connection every single day. Napoleon Hill identified 6 specific destroyers of connection to infinite intelligence. And here's what's going to piss you off. Modern productivity culture actively encourages 5 of them. We're taught to multitask, destroyer number 1, divided attention. We're told to be skeptical of everything. Destroyer number 2, cynicism. We're encouraged to consume massive amounts of information. Destroyer number 3, mental clutter. We're pushed to never rest. Destroyer number 4, exhaustion. And we're told that caring what others think is weakness. Destroyer number 5, disconnection from empathy. Meanwhile, Hill found that the most successful people did the opposite. They practiced focused attention, maintained childlike wonder, protected their mental space, prioritized rest, and stayed deeply connected to serving others. This wasn't coincidence. These practices maintained their connection to the intelligence that made everything work. Neuroscience research on the default mode network, the brain's background operating system, shows that breakthrough insights and creative solutions emerge during rest periods, not during active problem solving. A study from UC Santa Barbara found that people who took breaks scored 40% higher on creative problem solving than people who pushed through without rest. Hill observed this phenomenon constantly. Edison took naps holding ball bearings. When he drifted off, the ball bearings would drop and wake him up, and he'd have his solution. Tesla would take long walks and receive complete visions of inventions. Carnegie would sleep on major decisions and wake with clarity. This wasn't lazy. This was strategic. They understood that the conscious mind solves complicated problems, many moving parts, but the superconscious or infinite intelligence solves complex problems, unknown variables. And you can only access that deeper intelligence when you get out of the way. Here's how to apply this to make things work in your life starting today. Rachel was a business owner who prided herself on always being on. She checked email at midnight. She worked weekends. She never took real breaks because that's what success requires. Her business was stuck at the same revenue for 3 years, and she had no idea why. She was doing everything. Why wasn't it working? I introduced her to Hill's 6 connection destroyers and showed her how to eliminate them. Eliminate divided attention. Destroyer number 1. Rachel started blocking her calendar for single-focus work. 3 90-minute blocks per day, where she did one thing with full attention. Hill called this concentration of effort, and he said it was worth more than 12 hours of scattered work. Cultivate wonder instead of cynicism. Destroyer number 2. Rachel started a daily practice Hill recommended, finding something to be amazed by. The complexity of her body breathing automatically, the miracle of electricity, the mystery of consciousness. This shifted her from closed skepticism to open receptivity, the state where inspiration flows. Protect mental space. Destroyer number 3. Rachel cut her information consumption by 90%. No news, no social media scrolling, no random podcasts. Hill said successful people were selective in their use of stimuli. They protected their minds like fortresses, allowing only what served their definite purpose to enter. Prioritize strategic rest. Destroyer number 4. Rachel scheduled non-negotiable rest periods, 1 full day off per week, daily walks without phone, and 8 hours of sleep. Hill found that rest is not idleness. It's when your connection to infinite intelligence is strongest, because your conscious mind stops interfering. Practice empathetic service. Destroyer number 5. Rachel shifted from what can I get from my business to how can I serve more people better. Hill called this going the extra mile, and he said it creates a magnetic quality that attracts success automatically. Eliminate toxic inputs. Destroyer number 6. Hill's bonus. Rachel cut out complaining, gossip, and relationships with negative people. Hill said, "You become what you think about most, and you think about what you expose yourself to." She became ruthless about protecting her mental and emotional environment. Within 60 days of implementing these changes, Rachel had 3 major breakthroughs that had eluded her for years. New revenue streams she hadn't considered, solutions to persistent problems, key hires who transformed her business. Her revenue increased 65% in 6 months. But here's what she said was most significant. I wasn't working more. I was working less, maybe 30 hours a week instead of 60. But I was connected to something bigger than my own limited thinking. Ideas would just arrive. Solutions would appear. The right people would show up. It was like the universe was suddenly working with me instead of me fighting against everything alone. This is the profound shift Hill discovered. You're not meant to do this alone with just your conscious mind. You have access to an intelligence that organized 70 trillion cells to work together as your body. That intelligence is available to organize your business, your relationships, your finances, your entire life, if you'll create the conditions for it to work through you. Most people are so busy doing that they never create space for receiving. They're so focused on forcing outcomes that they block the natural flow of inspiration and opportunity. They're so addicted to control that they cut themselves off from the very source of power they're seeking. Hill said, "More gold has been mined from the thoughts of men than has been taken from the earth. But those valuable thoughts don't come from grinding harder. They come from creating the conditions where infinite intelligence can deliver them to you." But here's what most people get wrong when they try to apply this. They think it means sitting around waiting for inspiration to strike while taking no action. That's not what Hill taught. The balance between being and doing is critical, and getting it wrong sabotages everything. Here's the paradox that confuses everyone. Napoleon Hill taught both inspired action and persistent action, both trusting the universe and taking full responsibility. Both alignment before action and action creates alignment. These seem contradictory until you understand what Hill actually meant. There's a rhythm to success, a dance between receptivity and activity, between being and doing, between trusting and working. And the people who make things work in their lives have mastered this rhythm while everyone else is stuck in one extreme or the other. You've got people who are all action with no alignment. They're the burned-out hustlers wondering why hard work isn't paying off. Then you've got people who are all alignment with no action. They're the spiritual bypasser visualizing their dreams, but never doing anything practical. Both fail. The secret is the rhythm between them. Research on ultradian rhythms shows that human performance operates in 90 to 120-minute cycles throughout the day. Peak performance requires honoring these cycles. 90 minutes of focused activity followed by 20 minutes of rest and integration. Trying to push through these natural rhythms reduces effectiveness by up to 50%. Hill observed this rhythm on a larger scale in successful people's lives. They'd have periods of intense, focused action followed by periods of rest, reflection, and receptivity. Carnegie would take months off to travel and think. Ford would disappear to his workshop to tinker. Edison alternated between manic productive bursts and contemplative rest. The key is, they both worked intensely and rested completely. They didn't half-ass either one. When it was time to act, they acted with full commitment. When it was time to rest and receive, they rested with full permission. This rhythm is what made everything work. Let me show you exactly how to implement this rhythm. Michael was stuck in what I call action addiction. He believed that if he wasn't doing something every moment, he was wasting time. He'd work on his business 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But it was scattered, unfocused work. Lots of motion, minimal progress. He hadn't taken a real day off in 2 years, and his business had flatlined. I taught him Hill's principle of rhythmic success. Morning receptivity ritual, 20-30 minutes. Before any action, Michael would spend time in what Hill called the silence. Meditation, journaling, or just sitting quietly. The purpose wasn't to empty his mind, but to receive guidance about the day's priorities. Hill said that the subconscious mind works on your problems while you sleep and delivers answers in the quiet morning hours. Focused action blocks, 90 minutes. Based on his morning guidance, Michael would identify the top 1-3 priorities for the day. Then he'd work on them in 90-minute focused blocks. No distractions, no multitasking, full presence. Hill called this concentration of power, and he said 90 minutes of concentrated effort is worth 8 hours of scattered work. Integration breaks, 20 minutes. After each action block, Michael would completely disconnect. Walk outside, sit quietly. Let his mind wander. No consuming content, just being. Hill understood something neuroscience now confirms. Insights and integration happen during rest, not during constant activity. The break isn't wasted time. It's when your subconscious processes and delivers solutions. Weekly rhythm, 6 days of engaged work, 1 day of complete rest. Hill observed that successful people honored longer rhythms too. They'd work intensely for periods, then completely disconnect to recharge and gain perspective. Michael started taking Sundays completely off. No business thoughts, no email, nothing. Just rest, family, and fun. Quarterly rhythm, 3 months of execution, 1 week of strategic reflection. Hill noted that successful people regularly stepped back to evaluate whether they were still on the right path. Michael started scheduling quarterly retreats, where he'd review progress, reconnect with his bigger vision, and receive guidance about the next quarter's priorities. Michael's productivity increased dramatically while his work hours decreased. He went from 80 hours a week to 35 hours a week, but accomplished 3x more. Why? Because he was working from inspiration and alignment instead of from anxiety and force. He said, "I finally understood what Hill meant about working with universal laws instead of against them. There's a rhythm to everything in nature, day and night, seasons, tides. I was trying to be all day, no night, in my approach to business. The moment I honored the natural rhythm of action and rest, everything started flowing." Here's what Hill discovered that transforms everything. The universe operates in rhythms, cycles, and seasons. Your body operates in rhythms. Your brain operates in rhythms. Success operates in rhythms. When you align your activity with these natural rhythms instead of fighting them with constant grinding, you work with the fundamental operating system of reality instead of against it. This is why things work for some people and not others. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even necessarily hard work. It's rhythm. It's knowing when to push and when to release, when to act and when to receive, when to speak and when to listen, when to build and when to rest. Hill said, "You are the master of your destiny, but you cannot control the seasons. You can't force spring to come early by working harder, but you can plant seeds in spring and trust the cycle to deliver the harvest. That's how you make things work, by understanding the rhythm and moving with it rather than against it." Now, here's where people usually mess this up completely, and it's probably the most important distinction I can share with you. There's a difference between waiting for the right time and creating the right conditions. Hill's research revealed exactly how to tell the difference. Napoleon Hill found that unsuccessful people wait for perfect conditions, while successful people create optimal conditions. But here's the twist that trips everyone up. Creating conditions is not the same as forcing outcomes. When you force an outcome, you're trying to control every variable and make reality bend to your plan. When you create conditions, you're setting up the environment where success can emerge naturally, like a farmer preparing soil, planting seeds, and then trusting the process. The difference seems subtle, but the results are radically different. One leads to exhaustion and failure. The other leads to what Hill called effortless achievement, things working almost automatically because all the conditions are aligned. Research on environmental design by Stanford behavior scientist B.J. Fogg shows that changing your environment is 10x more effective than trying to change your behavior through willpower. When you create conditions that make desired behaviors easy and undesired behaviors difficult, change happens automatically. Hill observed this in wealthy people's habits. They didn't rely on discipline. They created environments where success was inevitable. Carnegie surrounded himself with brilliant minds, so ideas flowed naturally. Edison designed his laboratory to maximize creative output. Ford structured his factories to make efficiency automatic. They weren't working harder than everyone else. They were working smarter by creating conditions where success was the natural result rather than the forced exception. Here's how to apply the principle of creating conditions instead of forcing outcomes. Amy wanted to write a book, but had been trying for 5 years. She'd set writing goals. I'll write 1,000 words a day, and then fail within a week. She'd beat herself up, try again with different goals, fail again. Classic willpower-based approach that never works long-term because it's fighting against her environment and natural tendencies. I taught her Hill's principle of creating conditions for automatic success. Environment design for the behavior you want. Instead of trying to force herself to write, Amy redesigned her environment. She created a dedicated writing space that she only used for writing. Her brain would now associate that space with creative flow. Hill emphasized that environment shapes psychology more than willpower ever can. Remove obstacles to desired action. Amy identified every friction point that made writing hard. Computer full of distractions, notifications pinging, cluttered workspace, no clear time blocked for writing. She systematically eliminated each obstacle. Distraction-free writing software, phone in another room, clean desk. 6:27 a.m. blocked every morning before the chaos of the day. Add obstacles to undesired action. Amy made procrastination harder than writing. She deleted social media apps from her phone. She used website blockers during writing time. She told her family not to interrupt during her morning writing window. Hill taught that you must make success easy and failure hard, not the other way around. Create triggers for automatic behavior. Amy designed a simple morning routine. Wake up, coffee, straight to writing space. Light the same candle, open document, write. Within 2 weeks, the candle lighting became a trigger that put her into writing mode automatically. Hill called this habit of persistence, making desired actions automatic rather than decision-based. Track leading indicators, not just outcomes. Instead of obsessing over, is the book done yet? Amy tracked what she could control. Did she show up to her writing space? Did she honor her morning time? Hill taught to focus on the inputs you control, not the outputs you can't control. Amy finished her book in 4 months. But more importantly, writing became easy. She didn't need willpower anymore because the conditions made writing the natural path of least resistance. She said, "I spent 5 years trying to force myself to write through discipline. I spent 4 months making it easier to write than not to write, and the book basically wrote itself." Hill was right. You don't need more willpower. You need better conditions. This is the profound insight that changes how you approach making things work. You can't control outcomes, but you can control conditions. And when you get the conditions right, the outcomes take care of themselves. A seed doesn't force itself to become a tree. It doesn't use willpower or discipline. But when conditions are right, good soil, adequate water, sufficient sunlight, growth happens automatically. It's inevitable. That's how natural law works. Hill discovered that success follows the same principle. You can't force it into existence through sheer will, but you can create the conditions where it emerges naturally. And those conditions are clear purpose, aligned environment, persistent action in harmony with natural rhythms, openness to guidance from infinite intelligence, and faith in the process. Get those conditions right, and things work. Miss them, and you can grind yourself into dust and still fail. But here's the final piece that brings everything together. And it's the one thing Napoleon Hill said was absolutely essential to making anything work in your life. Without this one element, everything else fails. With it, everything else becomes possible. Let's get brutally real about why things aren't working in your life right now. You're scared. Scared you'll fail. Scared you'll succeed and not be able to handle it. Scared you'll look stupid. Scared you'll lose what little you have. Scared you'll waste your time. Scared you'll prove everyone right who said you couldn't do it. And that fear is creating what Hill called negative vibration. an energetic frequency that repels the very things you want. You can do all the visualization, take all the action, create perfect conditions, but if you're operating from fear instead of faith, you're working against yourself. Here's the urgency. Every day you spend in fear-based action, you're not just failing to move forward, you're actively moving backward. You're reinforcing neural pathways of doubt. You're creating momentum in the wrong direction. You're teaching your subconscious that success is dangerous and failure is safe. The fear is costing you money. It's costing you relationships. It's costing you health. It's costing you years of your life. And the worst part? It's completely unnecessary because Hill found that the thing you're most afraid of, failure, is actually impossible when you're aligned with infinite intelligence and natural law. Here's the complete system Napoleon Hill discovered for making things work in your life. This is comprehensive, so pay attention to every step. Establish definiteness of purpose. Get absolutely clear on what you want, not vague wishes, specific, concrete, measurable outcomes. Hill said, "A goal is a dream with a deadline." Write down exactly what you want in each area of life. Wealth, specific number. Relationships, specific qualities. Health, specific state. Contribution, specific impact. Be so specific that there's no ambiguity about whether you've achieved it or not. Understand why you want it. Hill found that the why is more important than the what. Your why must be strong enough to pull you through obstacles. It must be emotionally compelling, not just logically sensible. Why do you want that income level? How will it feel? Who will you become? What will it allow you to do? Make the why so vivid that it moves you emotionally when you think about it. Write it as a definite statement of purpose. Hill taught that you must crystallize your purpose into a clear statement. Format: I am desired identity, who, desired actions to create, desired outcome by specific date, so that compelling why. Example: I am a successful entrepreneur who serves 1,000 clients to create $500,000 annual income by December 31st, 2026, so that I can provide financial security for my family and prove that my vision was worth pursuing. Read this statement aloud twice daily. Morning and night, read your definite purpose statement with emotion and belief. Hill said this impresses your subconscious mind and activates what he called auto-suggestion. This isn't magic. It's programming your brain's reticular activating system to notice opportunities aligned with your purpose. Phase 2. Eliminate fear and build faith. Identify your specific fears. Hill outlined 6 basic fears: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. Which ones are running your life? Write them down. Be honest. Most people's actions are driven 80% by fear and only 20% by desire. You must reverse this ratio. Face each fear with truth. For each fear, ask: is this fear based on reality or imagination? What's the actual worst-case scenario? Could I handle it if it happened? Hill found that 95% of fears are about things that never happen. The remaining 5% are usually survivable. Fear loses its power when you face it with truth. Replace fear with faith through evidence. Hill taught that faith is built on evidence, not blind hope. Look for evidence that things can work out. Document times when things worked in the past. Study people who achieved what you want. Build a file of proof that success is possible. Your brain needs evidence to shift from fear to faith. Practice the mastermind principle. Hill's research showed that aligning with other minds multiplies power exponentially. Find 2 to 5 people who share your values and are pursuing similar goals. Meet weekly to share ideas, challenges, and support. The combined intelligence and faith of the group raises everyone's vibration and makes success more probable. Phase 3. Create optimal conditions. Design your physical environment. Walk through your living and working spaces. Does everything in your environment support your definite purpose or distract from it? Remove anything that pulls you away from your goals. Add anything that reinforces them. Hill said environment shapes you more than you shape environment, so be ruthless about this. Design your social environment. Hill's famous quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Audit your relationships. Do the people around you elevate you or drain you? Support your dreams or mock them? You don't need to cut everyone off, but you do need to limit time with negative influences and increase time with positive ones. Design your informational environment. What are you putting into your mind daily? News, mostly fear-based. Social media, mostly comparison-based. Random content, mostly distraction-based. Hill taught that you must guard your mind like a fortress. Choose consciously what you allow in. Read biographies of successful people. Study your field. Consume content that builds rather than depletes. Design your daily rhythm. Based on Hill's principle of working with natural rhythms, block your calendar for focused work during your peak energy hours. Schedule breaks for integration and inspiration. Protect sleep as non-negotiable. Create morning and evening rituals that connect you to your purpose. Make success the default path of least resistance in your schedule. Phase 4. Connect to infinite intelligence. Establish a daily silence practice. Hill emphasized this repeatedly. Successful people maintain regular contact with infinite intelligence through meditation, prayer, or contemplative silence. Minimum 10 minutes daily. The purpose isn't to empty your mind, but to quiet your conscious thoughts so you can receive guidance from deeper intelligence. Ask specific questions and listen for answers. In your silence practice, bring specific challenges or decisions. Ask clear questions. What's the best path forward on this? What am I not seeing? What should my next step be? Then wait. Listen. Notice what arises. Hill said answers come as hunches, sudden insights, or calm knowing, often immediately, sometimes hours or days later. Act on hunches and inspired impulses. When you receive guidance, a strong hunch to call someone, pursue an opportunity, change direction, act on it quickly. Hill found that infinite intelligence communicates through these impulses, but if you consistently ignore them, they stop coming. Build the habit of trusting and acting on inspired guidance. Keep a synchronicity journal. Document coincidences, unexpected meetings, timely information, doors opening, problems solving themselves. Hill taught that these aren't random. They're evidence that you're aligned with infinite intelligence and it's orchestrating circumstances in your favor. Noticing and appreciating these increases their frequency. Phase 5. Take persistent, intelligent action. Distinguish between persistent action and stubborn action. Hill taught persistence as essential, but warned against stupid persistence. Persistent action means continuing toward your goal while being flexible about your methods. Stubborn action means repeating failed approaches and expecting different results. Always persist on the goal. Always adapt the method. Use the going the extra mile principle. In everything you do, give more value than you're paid for. Hill found this creates a surplus of goodwill and value that inevitably returns to you multiplied. It's not about being a doormat. It's about creating such extraordinary value that success becomes inevitable. Apply the law of increasing returns. Hill discovered that success doesn't come linearly. It comes in quantum jumps after extended periods of effort with no visible results. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. The solution: decide in advance that you'll persist for a specific time period. Hill recommended 1 year minimum, regardless of visible results. Trust the process. Course correct based on feedback, not feelings. Your feelings will lie to you. Fear will tell you to quit when you're on the verge of success. Overconfidence will tell you to persist with a failing approach. Instead, use objective feedback. Are you moving toward your goal, even slowly? Are you receiving inspired guidance? Are synchronicities happening? If yes, persist. If no, adapt. Now, let's talk about critical mistakes to avoid. Mistake number 1: changing your goal every time you hit resistance. Hill found that most people change goals at the first sign of difficulty. They mistake resistance for being on the wrong path. Solution: commit to one definite purpose for minimum 1 year before you even consider changing it. Mistake number 2: taking action without alignment. Busyness isn't progress. You can take massive action in the wrong direction and end up further from success. Solution: always check alignment before action. Does this feel right? Is this inspired or forced? Am I acting from fear or faith? Mistake number 3: waiting for perfect conditions before starting. Hill said, do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools you may have at your command. Perfection is procrastination in disguise. Solution: start with what you have, where you are, right now. Mistake number 4: trying to do it alone. Hill's research showed that every successful person had help: mentors, masterminds, partners, employees. Lone wolves don't build empires. Solution: form your mastermind group within the first month. Get help early and often. Mistake number 5: giving up right before the breakthrough. Hill documented that most overnight successes came after years of invisible effort. The gold is often just 3 feet deeper than where most people stop digging. Solution: decide your quit point in advance, if ever, and don't reevaluate until you reach it. Emotions make terrible quit point decisions. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, because I know what some of you are thinking. This infinite intelligence stuff sounds like religious nonsense. Look, I get it. Hill used language that sounds mystical or religious because he was writing in the 1930s. But here's the thing. Modern science has caught up with what Hill observed empirically. When he talked about infinite intelligence, you can translate that to the quantum field, the collective unconscious, the emergent properties of complex systems, the organizing intelligence of nature, or, if you're religious, God. The label doesn't matter. What matters is the observable phenomenon. There is an intelligence operating in the universe beyond individual human consciousness. Your body runs 70 trillion cellular operations per second without your conscious input. That's intelligence. Plants grow toward light through processes we still don't fully understand. That's intelligence. Ecosystems self-organize into balanced complexity. That's intelligence. Hill was simply saying, the same intelligence that organizes all of nature can help organize your life if you learn to work with it instead of against it. Call it whatever you want. The results are the same. But what about privilege? Some people have advantages I don't have. 100% true. Some people start ahead. Life isn't fair. Hill never claimed it was. But here's what his research actually showed. Many of the most successful people he studied started with less than their competitors. Carnegie was a poor immigrant. Edison had 3 months of formal education. Ford's first 2 companies failed. They succeeded not because they had advantages, but because they learned to work with universal principles that are available to everyone. You can't control your starting point. You can control whether you align with the laws that govern success. Those laws don't care about your background. They work for anyone who applies them correctly. This sounds like it takes forever. I need results now. And that impatience is exactly why you don't have results yet. You want to microwave success, but it's a slow cooker process. Hill found that most significant success took years of preparation before it became visible. But here's the thing. The years are going to pass anyway. You can spend them building a foundation according to natural law, or you can spend them jumping from one quick fix scheme to another and end up exactly where you are now. The fastest way to success is to stop looking for fast ways and start building the right way. What if I do all this and it still doesn't work? Then you didn't actually do it. Or you didn't do it long enough. Or you had the wrong definition of work. Hill studied 500 successful people over 20 years. The principles worked for all of them. These aren't opinions. They're observed laws of success. If you apply genuine definiteness of purpose, eliminate fear, create optimal conditions, connect to infinite intelligence, and take persistent, intelligent action for a sustained period, something will change. But you have to actually do it. Reading about it isn't doing it. Understanding it intellectually isn't doing it. Trying it for 2 weeks and quitting isn't doing it. And working might not mean what you think. It might mean you don't get rich, but you find peace. Or you don't build an empire, but you build a life you love. Hill's definition of success was the attainment of your definite chief aim without violating the rights of others. That's broader than just money. Leave a comment below. Do you think Hill's principles still apply in 2025? Or is this outdated thinking? I want to know what you really think. All right, let's bring this all together, because we've covered a lot, and I want to make sure you can actually apply this. Here's what you now know that 99% of people will never understand. Making things work in your life isn't about grinding harder. It's about aligning with the fundamental laws that govern success, in the same way gravity governs falling objects. These laws worked in Napoleon Hill's time. They worked 1,000 years before that. They'll work 1,000 years from now. They're not trends, they're laws. The complete system is definiteness of purpose. Get crystal clear on what you want and why you want it. Write it down. Read it daily. Let it program your subconscious mind and activate your reticular activating system to notice opportunities. Elimination of fear. Face your fears with truth. Build faith through evidence. Stop operating from anxiety and start operating from vision. Fear repels success. Faith attracts it. Optimal conditions. Design your environment, relationships, inputs, and schedule to make success the path of least resistance. Stop relying on willpower. Create conditions where success is automatic. Connection to infinite intelligence. Establish daily silence practice. Ask specific questions. Listen for guidance. Act on hunches. Document synchronicities. You're not alone in this. There's an organizing intelligence available to help you if you learn to work with it. Persistent, intelligent action. Take action, but not stupid action. Persist on your goal while adapting your methods. Give more value than you're paid for. Trust the process through the invisible preparation period. Don't quit 3 feet from gold. Rhythmic application. Honor the natural rhythm of action and rest, doing and being, pushing and allowing. Work with the cycles of nature instead of trying to force constant output. This isn't theory. This isn't motivational fluff. This is the distilled wisdom from studying 500 of the most successful people who ever lived. This is what actually makes things work. Now here's what I need you to do. First, subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications. I'm releasing a follow-up video next week on Hill's mastermind principle that multiplies everything you learned today by 10x. You don't want to miss it. Second, here's your immediate action step. Don't just watch this and move on. That's what everyone does, and that's why everyone stays stuck. Instead, go to the description and download the free Definiteness of Purpose template I created based on Hill's exact methodology. Fill it out today. Not tomorrow. Today. It takes 20 minutes, and it could change your entire life trajectory. Third, and this is crucial, comment below with your definite chief aim. Make it public. Write, "My definite purpose is," your specific goal. Hill taught that declaring your purpose publicly creates accountability and activates the mastermind principle as people align their energy with yours. I read every comment, and I'll personally respond with specific guidance for your situation. Everything you want is already available. The money exists. The relationships exist. The opportunities exist. The only question is, are you available to receive them? You become available by aligning with the laws that govern success. Not by working harder, not by being smarter, not by getting lucky, by aligning. And alignment starts with a decision. A decision that you're done with the struggle, done with the fear, done with the randomness. You're ready to work with the universe instead of against it. Hill said, "There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it. You now know what to do. The only question is, will you do it? Because I promise you this, 1 year from now, you'll look back on this moment, and you'll either say, 'That's when everything changed,' or 'I wish I had actually applied what I learned.' The difference between those two outcomes is the decision you make in the next 60 seconds. Subscribe, download the template, declare your purpose in the comments, and then do the work. Not the busy work, not the distraction work. The real work of alignment, connection, and intelligent persistence. Do that, and I guarantee things will start working in your life in ways you can't even imagine right now. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years of his life uncovering these principles so you wouldn't have to. Honor that gift by actually using it. Your transformation doesn't start tomorrow. It starts right now. Make the decision. Take the action. Trust the process. I'll see you in the next video where we go even deeper into the mastermind principle and how to multiply your results exponentially. Until then, go make things work.